I look back at, my journey too, and it's like, no, I went on a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3,
right.
Tier 4 trip before I ever went long term.
Right.
And that's the point of the funnel. That's the point of the pipeline. I have to view it too, like somebody on a tier 1 trip, this year in 2025, long term in 2030.
Exactly right.
That's how we have to see it.
We have to see it that way.
Absolutely.
There are no shortcuts with this stuff. Like,
right.
If you want to get to a M at 27, 28 years old that is going to be all in for more than one term,
yep.
It very well may be that they need to hear consistent preaching that talks about going, and at 14 or 15 years old, there's an opportunity in their church to go on a tier 1, tier 2 cross-cultural trip.
This is Breaking Barriers, where we help pastors and churches grow so that they can go.
Hey guys, Pastor Andrew here. Man, excited today to jump back into a conversation that I had with Pastor Landon, our missions pastor, last week. It's so important for us to send people to the nations, and we want to send people that are the right people and are equipped well, that are tough, resilient, equipped, courageous, and they're ready for what's going to happen with them. In 2024, we were so blessed to be the church that sent the most international workers through the International Mission Board. Although we're not the largest, it is such an emphasis for us. And today, we want to just pull back the playbook and say, guys, that doesn't happen without incredible intentionality. We need as much intentionality around going as we have around growing. So I hope you I hope you enjoy the remainder of this conversation today. All right, so let's transition this and let's get into the actual practical stuff today. We've tried to spend. I really wanted to spend a good bit of this podcast setting up the why. Again, not good enough to just say someone feels called to missions, surrender them to the IMB. We love the IMB. We just want to send people that are ready to take that step. And that's a process. There are no shortcuts. People got to grow into that. And so we've created, a pipeline that we use that we think has been pretty effective for not only calling out the called, but then equipping the called. And I would love to spend the rest of our time just going through this. Now, let me say this. This is prescriptive, not descriptive. All right. We are, as many things, are breaking barriers. If you don't have a process and you feel like, well, dang, that's a pretty good one, then just absolutely steal it, rebrand it, feel no compulsion to give us the credit for it, okay? Make it yours. That's fine. If our bullets work in your gun, fine. If you have one, then don't feel the need to adapt, and it's working, great, but maybe there's some things here that we can kind of tweak, or maybe there's some things here that can be used. Now, I'm going to do another podcast in the future with JY. Okay, and we're going to do the same kind of idea, but talk about the pipeline for church planning. And we've already done more of that. This is more of the international, but today is specifically around the international, reach. As you said, our God is worthy of being praised through the prism of 1,000 languages, right? Like He's, His glory to the ends of the earth. That's our heartbeat. People ask me, why did you plant Mercy Hill? I said, because we want to send. Mm-hmm. And what I meant by send was not just plant domestic churches. It was get people to the ends of the earth. Felt like this is a good place to do it from. People ask me like, man, do you want to, you're just trying to get the church to grow big. I'm like, well, I am trying to get the church to grow big, but it's because of this. I would love for Mercy Hill to be 10,000 people. That way we have that kind of resources to do this, to send more and more and more people to the ends of the earth. And let's just finish the task of getting every people group on earth a gospel message. So we want to get people to where the gospel is not. There are places where the sun rises and sets. No one knows who to give the credit to. They could walk out of their house for days and months, never see a Christian, never see a Bible. All right. Landon, this is your wheelhouse. This is your job, man. How do we get people from here to there?
Yeah. I would say first off, too, with this, you mentioned it, in 2025, we sent the most of any other SBC church to the nations. Get pretty fired up about
Praise
that.
Praise God for that.
That's right. The Lord did so much and all that. But I really get even more fired up going to, the FPO graduation and then getting ready to be sent out by the IMB and director after director, senior leadership coming up to me and saying, hey, y'all hadn't sent only the most, but y'all sent the most equipped and prepared.
That's great.
So I think this pipeline does exactly that. And I'll say this too, like, yeah, take take what you want, leave what you want. I'm constantly, our missions team is constantly adapting this thing. I think we have a pretty good structure right now. I'll even speak on, like, we added a piece last year, which it did exactly what we wanted it to do.
Right. You're talking about Envision.
Envision. Yeah. We'll talk about that. But also too, like, this is something we kind of looked in, and so as Launch Global has come in, we've kind of taken some of that as well. So I'll say that, like, we're always looking exactly where, we're going to put leverage where it needs to be, hammered down on. So
yeah, sometimes people are like, man, you guys give all your stuff away for free. I'm like, everything we have is stolen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not everything,
sure.
but like,
yeah,
a lot of times we're trying to steal, like, oh, that works, let's do that.
That's right.
And
That's
then we
right.
try to make it our own and, like, figure it out. So yeah, we want to give it away because somebody, whether they realize it or not, they gave it to us.
For sure. But yeah, I mean, obviously pipeline is very much kind of a buzzword. I think about it more of like a funnel.
Okay.
You're pretty wide at the top. It gets pretty narrow at the bottom, and then you kind of send them, they get spit out, in a sense, sent out. So we'll start at the top. Really think about Go teams. So Go teams are our short-term teams, and we really have like 4 tiers for this. So my big thing, we talk about it all the time, like what's the next step this person can take. So I think that helps with Go teams. The biggest thing with Go teams, short-term trips, is exposure. I want them to be exposed to a church planting movement, to the nations, to the unreached. So like a level 1 or a tier 1, we call them tier 1. Like a tier 1 Go team would be like, hey, you're going to a church plant domestically here. It's huge though. Like they're seeing sending,
right.
They're going somewhere, they're staying in an Airbnb, they're with a team, it's creating some of that culture you want to see as they go down the funnel. And that's the goal, go through the funnel. So level 2 would be somewhere more international, Honduras, Guatemala. Maybe they're not doing the missionary task per se, but they're there doing something with, Vacation Bible School for some kids. We do that in Honduras, maybe, making Adobe bricks and building this house with this person, sharing the gospel with this person who they're building the house for, so stuff like that. And then level 3, you're working with one of our units on the field, and praise God for this. We get to send all our level 3 and level 4 trips directly to our own sent ones from Mercy Hill. So
awesome.
We'll send them out, not working with a unreached, unengaged people group, but doing the missionary task there. So they're getting touches, they're getting exposed to that. Missionary task is obviously very important because that's what they'll be doing, if they do go the whole way through our pipeline. And then tier 4 would be...
Are you going to describe missionary task?
Yeah. So missionary task is entry. So you come in, you really jump in, like, hey, you're fully immersed. People can do entry and not really be immersed. So we want to jump in, be immersed in the culture, language, wherever they are, and then that pushes towards evangelism. So we jump in this is why we go to share the gospel. Hopefully, people listen to this podcast. This is why, as your church exists to make disciples, to disciples to be made, the gospel got to be shared.
That's right.
So evangelism second, and then we have healthy discipleship. So we kind of go into that. People get saved through evangelism, moves into discipleship, and then we have healthy church formation. And part of that is elders being raised up in the church, really shepherds, indigenous, hopefully. In some cases, things are different around the world, but yeah, they're jumping in, being raised up to really shepherd the flock, and that the church is the goal. We want to plant churches.
All right, so by level 3, tier 3, you're coming alongside people that are doing that.
That are doing exactly this.
Missionary task. And then what's 4?
And then, so level 4 is same thing. You're doing the missionary task, but it's in an unreached, unengaged people group. So it's in a red dot. We talk a lot about red dot, green dots. If you've ever seen a map, there's maps all over the place. By most research agencies, there's 7,100 red dots. And that would mean like access to the gospel is extremely limited or non-existent.
Yeah.
So that's where most of our units are, and unashamedly at Mercy Hill, really in my seat, like we really want to push people towards the red dots.
Right.
So
now, one of the things that me and you see the same way, but a lot of people don't, is we see a ton of value in tier 1 and 2, not just 3 and 4.
Yep.
And a lot of times people are like, oh, like my son, this summer, he's going to the Dominican Republic to help Filters of Hope. He's actually not going with our church. He's going with a different church, but they're going to be down there. He's 13 years old. They're going to be, giving out water filters and then talking about Jesus as the living water. I mean, that's kind of the whole idea. It's like, man, it's a platform to end up sharing the gospel. And we would look at that as like more of a level 2, tier 2 trip. Mm-hmm. But you and I, and this comes from IMB's world too, with Paul Chitwood, is like people are way more, 4 times more likely to give, pray, or ever go, or even go to the nations if they've ever done even that one time. And so we think the exposure of level 1 and 2 is very important. And we just reject the cynicism of, well, you've heard it, man. Well, that's poverty tourism, or they're not really going to do the missionary task, or why would we spend all that money to send them? Why wouldn't we just go do the X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. And we're just like, dude, we reject that full stop.
Absolutely.
We have tiers. There's a reason for tiers. Somebody that's ready for level 1 is not ready for level 4. Mm-hmm. Like it's all, you said earlier, stacking yeses. I mean, how do you view that? Or have you ever struggled with that? Like, have you always kind of seen it that way, or have you kind of come to see it a little bit like what I'm talking about?
I feel like actually my time on the field kind of helped with some of this.
Okay.
Just like, I know you came with a short-term team. We had other short-term teams come from different churches to visit different units on our team. But just kind of hearing, them speak about some things, because I could probably take your journey and your heart for the nations. It probably happened on a tier 1 trip.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think that's, so I learned a lot with that. It was, maybe I was a little bit like unreached or bust, very early on in my journey. But I think as I matured, it's like, I look back at, my journey too. And it's like, no, I went on a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 trip before I ever went long term.
Right.
And that's the point of the funnel. That's the point of the pipeline. So yes, I had to view it too, like somebody on a tier 1 trip, this year in 2025, long term in 2030.
That's exactly right.
I mean, that's how we have to see it.
We have to see it that way.
Absolutely.
There are no shortcuts with this stuff. Like,
that's right.
Man, 13, if you want to get to a M at 27, 28 years old that is going to be all in for more than one term,
yep.
It very well may be that they need to hear consistent preaching that talks about going. And at 14 or 15 years old, there's an opportunity in their church to go on a level, tier 1, tier 2, hopefully tier 2, but get to tier 2, cross-cultural trip. And I mean, dude, and it's just like, I think that sometimes the idea of short-term missions has fallen a little bit out of favor, meaning it's like, let's put our interest somewhere else, or, hey, you're not going to get everybody to go on these trips with your church, which I understand you're not going to be able to get everybody to go. But is there a certain percentage you can get to go, understanding that becomes the pool for which long-term sending is being pulled out of?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. So, there's stats too. 91% of people who go long-term went short-term first.
I would have thought it'd be 100.
Well, at Mercy Hill, it is 100.
Yeah, that's right.
We've sent out 71.
Yeah.
And all 71 went on, most of them multiple short.
That's right.
I mean, it's just what it is, So you got to, I'll give you an example right now with our student ministry. So our student ministry is having summer projects coming right up.
Yeah,
Hattie Joe's doing it.
Yeah.
Yep. So we have 3 different trips for them. Now, the goal, if they're a freshman doing it, they're going to go to Tampa this year. Mm-hmm. But the goal is for them not to go to Tampa next year, for them to kind of walk through that pipeline. And we're going to Tampa. We're going to Calgary.
That's tier 2, probably.
Tier 2.
Or they're both kind of tier 2, but number 3 is a little bit more.
I would say Tampa's more tier 1, and then, Calgary would be tier 2.
Well, I'm talking about the next one, though.
That's right. And then, the other one would be Latvia.
Yeah, so that's tier 2, but a little more aggressive.
Well, I would say tier 3, working with the missionary task there and units there on the field.
Is that our unit?
IMB units. That's not our units.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Man, that's incredible. But that idea of even that progression, I mean, a lot of Mercy Hill, if people get under it, is literally built on stacking one yes after another yes after another yes. I mean, it's why we do multi-site. It's why we do a lot of things. Okay, so the top of the funnel is the Go team, which ironically a lot of people have moved away from. Mm-hmm. We've kind of said, no, that's the foundation. What's our goal this year?
400.
We want to see 400. I think in the 3-year vision frame we have, or 3-year vivid vision, I think I said 5, maybe. Oh, I think it was more. 700.
It might have been 700.
750,
it's 700. I think it's
okay.
700.
So I mean, we're aggressively, it goes back to leads and lags, right? We're like, hey man, if all you do is focus on the one person that's getting sent to the IMB, we got to be focused on where the lead measure is. The lead measure for us, top of the funnel, go team.
Yep.
It reduces. Second step of the funnel is?
So envision. So envision is really the piece that we did not have in play. And we've only done one session of envision. That was last fall. We'll do another one this fall.
So we're doing one a year right now?
One a year. It'll be in the fall.
Okay.
And really we never, some of y'all will relate to this, we never really had a place in our funnel or pipeline that people could just sit and hear. They get that on Sunday morning. Andrew do a great job of that, putting the nations in front of them. But you think about a go team. Hey, you're going somewhere. Like you're raising support. You're going somewhere. Pretty big ask, in a lot of ways. With DMIs, which I'll talk about in a minute, very intense. And then RMC, like you really get to the bottom of that funnel. So it's always like a lot of buy-in.
Yeah.
Envision was like, hey, nations of God, God's heart for the nations, just sit here for 4 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, we're going to call you to something after week 4, but we just want you to kind of sit here. And it's kind of the same way with the missions interest dinner over Sent Weekend. Mm-hmm. Like we just want you to sit there. We're going to call you to something.
Yeah.
And we're going to call you to take that next step. Everybody's step is probably different sitting in that room, but we had 200 people just sit there. And week 1 was, our missionary God, just from Genesis to Revelation.
Yeah.
This is who God is. He's always been about the nations. And then week 2 was the need. Really talking about those red dots, really talking about
heavy stuff.
Very heavy. So the heavy person spoke. So I spoke on that, and it was weighty.
I bet.
I remember it was it's just hard. You think about 3.2 billion people, the sun will rise and the sun will set. They'll have no idea who to give the glory to. And that's why we exist. As a church, we want to send people right into that darkness. And then week 3 was like, hey, like your holy ambition. Like, what is your holy ambition? And then week 4 was accomplishing the task.
Now, if somebody wants that, they can email in and we'll give it to them.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a book. I can send them all our curriculum.
So we can, Wes, we can maybe launch that with maybe on the Breaking Barriers on the Breaking Barriers Facebook too or something. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So envision the way I think about it is like go teams are the crowd. Yeah. I know this. Don't take this theologically too, but generally, go teams are the crowd. Envision's a 70.
Yeah.
DMI is a 12. RMC is a 3.
That's about right.
And
that's a good way to think about it.
Right. Not right numbers, but just that idea. So we're trying to get 400 in go team this year. What do you think? 100?
200 in Envision.
Oh, okay. 200 in Envision.
Yep.
All right.
The goal was 100 in DMIs.
Okay, we're going to talk about DNI in a second.
Yeah.
All right, so 200 in Envision. Let me just say this. This was the part that I feel like was missing that you guys did a great job of getting in because we need somewhere for people to process.
That's right.
And dude, there's going to be people in Envision that didn't go on a go team. I get that. And there's going to be people that enter a DMI that never went to Envision, right? Like the stuff's not perfectly linear. But generally, people need, they need to be like my son. Okay, he's now wrestling with cross-cultural. I saw the need. Now he needs to be able to be taught didactically, biblically, shaped by the Bible on what does that experience mean and what does it mean for the rest of the world. Okay, now out of Envision, and again, this is not all linear, but generally speaking, let's get down to the 12, so to speak. Master plan evangelism here. Let's go down to the 12. Okay. Now we're getting into DMI, and this is where we get into a bunch of insider language. Envision is just a great way to say this is what we're envisioning. This is what the Bible envisions.
Yep.
DMI, disciple making intensive.
That's right.
Which is a good name. It's a very intense time of formation. And talk to us about this. It runs congruent with our community groups, but it's a little bit of a deeper deal that is specific to the nations.
That's right. Yeah. So with DMIs, it is intense and it follows really a 3-2-1 model. So we want 3 hours a week of abiding in the Word, your own personal prayer, digging in the Word. We have some stuff that we recommend, like, hey, read through the book of Acts over this time. So that's the 3 hours. It's about 30 minutes a week or 30 minutes a day gets you to that 3 hours. Right. And then the 2 is we want you to spend 2 hours in the harvest. So you're looking to where the nations are. There's a lot of apartment complexes. A lot of the nations are there. A lot of like smoke shops and places like this. Gas stations. A lot of internationals working there.
We don't condone smoking though.
That's right. We don't.
But we're fine with doing evangelism there.
That's exactly right.
Just joking, man.
Or just with your neighbors, with your coworkers. This was so awesome this year. We had a DMI of moms. So they went to the park for these 2 hours with their kids. Their kids are sharing the gospel over there on the playground.
Wow.
And the moms are sharing with other moms. So it was just really cool to
Is the idea though to try to target a cross-cultural context? Doesn't have to be?
Doesn't have to be.
But most of the time, is it?
I would say probably 50-50.
Okay, all right.
So we do like, hey, we don't want you sharing the gospel solely in your workplace. Like if you do that 70% of the time, great. We want you to mix it up with international.
Go somewhere.
That's right. So, and then the one is, and this messes people up the first time, about week 10, they love it. So it's an hour of prayer for the nations. So when I say that, most people are like, an hour? Like you don't stop for an hour.
Right.
So like if there's 12 people in your DMI and you go around one time and you've only spent 10 minutes, you go around again and you go around again. Mm-hmm. You bring scripture into it, you bring people groups into it. But it messes people up for the first time, but by the end they love it. It's think about like, we had I think 8 groups, for an hour a week, just crying out for our sent ones, the people groups they're working with for an hour straight, nonstop.
And they do that together.
They do that together.
They do the 2-hour harvest together?
So they go out in pairs. So you'll pick someone else. So like you and I would go out one week, and then me and somebody else, you and somebody else, we would pair up like that. And then, by the time the 10 weeks goes on, like, hey, you and I work well together. Like we'll go out again and stuff.
Do they also meet as a group during the week?
Yeah, so they have halftime as well. So this is what I love about a DMI. Most like very heavy evangelistic, things like trainings and stuff, they do one or two things. They say, hey, go. Like no training, just go. Mm-hmm. And it flops, right? They, people go out there, they just walk around, or some people give a lot of training, but they never go out in the harvest.
Never push.
And the awesome thing about the DMI is you have 2 weeks with your group. We call them half times. And it's the training, it's rigorous. They're getting in deep on some stuff, learning like all gospel sharing methods known to man, and like, hey, we're gonna do this. And then it's pairing up usually over the weekend and going out and applying what you learned at that halftime.
They do halftime every single week though.
Every single
10
week.
weeks. Okay,
right.
so
it's really like 3-2-2-1.
That's what I was about to say. It's like a group.
Yeah.
And then you do 3-2-1.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we launch these. Do we do these 3 times a year or 2?
We do it 1 time a year now.
DMI only happens when?
In the spring.
All right. Yeah. So they're right in the middle of it?
Well, they just finished. We just had the big celebration. It was just incredible hearing all the stories coming out of it.
All right. So those people jump out of their normal community group.
Yeah.
They jump into a DMI and then they go back into their group.
That's right.
And when they go back into their group, they're not shaming their group for not having done a DMI.
Yep.
But they are excited about what they've done.
So week 9 at halftime, we have a session where we just say, it's probably a 15-minute session, like, hey, you're going back into your group and you're not wielding a hammer. Right. You have a scalpel. Yeah, we want people jumping into this, but you're not going back in there shaming. You're going back in there very humbly.
Right.
And we the awesome thing too, we had a whole group this time jump in, and to see like a couple of them in the group were like, hey, I can't do this. The seeing them week 1 saying that to week 9, week 10 sharing the gospel faithfully.
Wow.
And kind of becoming the rock stars of that group.
Cool, man.
It's just really cool to see the growth.
So we do DMI once a year, and then the idea of getting down to the 3. This is where you're getting down to like, okay, I've seen it, I've internalized it, I've done it locally. Now we're getting ready to go to the field. But you said the team dynamic is one of the biggest things that knocks people out. So this is the big ask, high challenge environment. There are no shortcuts.
Yep.
Sell your house, move into an apartment complex with your teammates while you're on this side of the pond. Okay,
exactly
talk about that.
Yeah, so it's 9 months. We call it the residential missions community. So they move into a very international apartment complex in High Point, Westchester Key, and they move in August. They'll stay in that same apartment with a roommate if they're a married couple. Obviously, they'll get their own apartment, and they'll stay until May. So 9 months. Everything that you would face on the field is thrown at you. So teaming's obviously a huge thing. You step out of your community group into this basically is your community group. Very intense. We do things in the fall called gospel inventory, really digging in the heart, really working through a lot of those things that are going to flare up on the field. And just having an opportunity to address those now. Hey, how am I going to navigate this? Like, this is something that comes up a lot in my life. Like, how can I navigate this? How can I team well? Really working on social awarenesses, spiritual awarenesses, emotional awarenesses, really throughout that whole 9 months. We have John Truey leads that awesome guy, just does an incredible job with them. And
do they meet weekly?
So they meet,
or do they do session based?
So they follow the DMI rhythms. So they really have that 3-2-2-1
the whole time they're in.
The whole time they're in the RMC.
This is intense.
It is extremely intense.
Right.
So we've only had 2. So the other one just finished up. So we had 7 in the first one. We had 5 this past go around. I think we'll either have 8 or 9 coming up in August. But they come out of that and they're so tight knit. It's just really cool to see. The growth of them.
Our biggest one is coming. Our
biggest one is coming up.
So this is not stuff that's in theory. I mean, this is now this is going on the third year of us working this process. The numbers are, they're I don't know how to say it. They are comparatively they are huge, but they're not big numbers. You're talking about 5, 7, 8.
That's right.
But at the same time, this is our best shot at yes, there's 8, but those 8 are actually ready.
Mm-hmm.
Now. We can't, they're going to get to the field and they're going to face things that we can't, but maybe they're not going to take such a punch in the mouth because they've already taken a lot of it on this side where they can still be a part of their community and a part of their church. That's kind of the idea.
For sure. Absolutely. I mean, I could tell you, from our group that went out first, they're all on the field now except one. She's actually a resident here who will probably go to the field in the next couple years. But I could tell you one about each one of those families and units on the field that I'm like, you just hear them talking, RMC missions language when you hear, daughters in the hospital for one of them. Literally the first week they're there, they don't know what it is. She's in the hospital for like 2 or 3 weeks, and they just landed in this country.
Right.
It's really hard. They're trying to navigate everything, and you just hear things like, like that was the point of the RMC.
Right.
That was the point of that intensity, because when it's ramped up now, they're like, okay, I've kind of done this before. Mm-hmm. And I could tell you, 2 or 3 other stories as well that we've just seen so much fruit from this.
It's great, man. Well, Landon, thank you so much for laying that out from the RMC. That at that point it's time to go, right? It's time to kind of get to
sure.
I mean, at that point we'll leave it, because then you actually are going to the sending board that you're going to or whatever. Right. And I just think it's really important. Like, if we see the task as that big, we see it as that important. That 2-year process or generally 2 years that you just laid out. I think if a church doesn't have anything like that, it's almost like you want to say, well, man, how serious are you about making sure they're ready?
Right.
Because if the idea is, well, the IMB is going to do that, or the whoever is going to do that, I promise you these sending agencies are praying to God that these people are going to be ready and equipped by their church before they get to them. Yes, the IMB and other sending agencies are going to do an incredible job with the 7 weeks they have with them, and they're going to try to take care of them on the field. But, there was 7 years before the 7 weeks. There was 2 intentional years before the 7 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I think what we pour into them is going to really give us the fruit. Landon, you got any last word?
Yeah, I would just say, at that point, 7 weeks isn't enough. It's not enough. It needs to be, it needs to, you have to have something, because the task is too important.
Right.
Our people are too important.
Yeah.
We want to care for them. We want to equip them. We want them to grow in Christ deeply. Mm-hmm. That's what it's all about as they go out. And 7 weeks, at the IMB's farm is not going to be enough. It does need to be that 3+ years of you walking very closely to them. And, obviously this pipeline allows that. I also say too, like, if you don't have anything, like, get something in place. I just think it's really important. Even if you don't have anybody in your pipeline, like, you don't have anybody, if it's not there when they're ready, it'll never be there.
Yeah, prepare the jars, man.
That's right.
Like,
we want to do that. We want to do that.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying. The 7 weeks with the IMB is not enough, but that's not a reason for the IMB to say, well, we'll do 14.
Sure.
It's like,
That's
no,
right.
that still ain't gonna be enough. Like,
Yep.
what their finishing touches are fine, but it's got to be viewed as that. It's got to be viewed as the finishing process.
Yep.
You know, not the couple of years of investment on the front end. Man, this has been great, guys. Hey, we can grow without going. We cannot go without growing. If we are growing, we have an opportunity to send people out, and I pray that we'll be just as intentional with that process as we are with the growth process. All right. Hey, guys, we always have another one-day event coming up, so you can check out breakinggrowthbarriers.com to see what's coming up and when. But, man, these are great events for you to check out and for you to kind of get your feet wet with Mercy Hill and with Breaking Barriers. I hope you'll do that. Thanks.